Good Friday morning. I want to switch a little bit. In a sense, the crescendo in John continues, but this is chapter 10 now, where again he's asserting his divinity, clearly calls himself the Son of God. But I thought if you look at Jeremiah, it shows you that the prophet is not accepted. The prophetic role of the prophet. The prophet is not accepted, and his enemies from within seek his stumbling. And I have to say, when I read those texts, especially now, I see that the church is the body of Christ in the world, and she suffers with Christ and in her prophetic mission to the world. I'll read it to you. Now think of the church, okay? I don't mean by that piously. Think of the body of Christ, the church, her hierarchy, her teaching, her sacraments, her envisagement to the world, presenting Christ to the world as the hope of humanity itself. You see? Look at her proclaiming a profound and radical Christian humanism to a world that doesn't want it. I think of that all the time. We have been rejecting Christianity for really since the 14th and 15th centuries, since the Renaissance. Been basically peripheralizing. The Protestant Reformation wreaked havoc on it in that regard, especially by privatizing faith and disconnecting it from art and from science. Catholicism never has. That's why we have Catholic universities. But still, there is that sense that the prophetic voice, even within the church, has been muted and disfigured. Not by the teaching church, I don't mean that, but in the actual life of it. Power of the world, the divisiveness of the world is powerful. It's entrancing. It's intoxicating. And in many ways, it's caused us to doubt the authenticity of the gospel message found, the humanism found in the church itself. I believe that, actually. I'll show you. Listen to the way Jeremiah, he was a tough cookie. He says, I hear the whisperings of many, terror on every side, denounce, let us denounce them. Let us denounce the church. Now, that doesn't come from within the church, although it could. It could, but it mostly comes from the secular world. See, the church is, in a sense, the last great voice, especially in the West, to the radical neo-paganism that has ascended over the last 800 years, 800 years. The church is the last voice of a counter-humanism, a humanism that's counter to secular humanism, which sees, in a sense, man as an end in himself, as it were, the only value. Well, we see it as human beings are the supreme created value, but always in the light of their share in the sonship of Christ, in the Trinity, in the life of God, in the life of the church. See? I'm not saying that well at all. But there's an alternative secular humanism. It's Christian humanism. And Christian humanism is a profound sense of what it is to be human and what is human dignity. In my view, it's the Christian world that gives you ultimately, and I think the Jewish world can do the same. The Judeo-Christian vision of human dignity is the basis of human rights. Kant gives us that philosophically, but he was a devout Christian. You see, a devout Lutheran, you see. And so I think that very, very true, that the humanism that is espoused by the church, the Judeo-Christian church, is a humanism that grounds at a profound level the social community, human life, the human community, and therefore government, constitutionalism, and all the rest. Even the founders of America, the founding fathers, though they themselves were deists, hardly Christian, they understood that Christianity lay at the root of the humanism that undergirded the Constitution and a deep and profound democracy, human dignity, and it isn't political correctness. It's radical human dignity, given the human vocation under the fatherhood of God. In a sense, our share in the sonship of Christ. See? So here's what he says: all those who are my friends are on the watch for my every misstep. Who were the friends? I would say Europe up until the 15th century. See? Perhaps he will be trapped. Then we can prevail and take our vengeance on him. See? We'll catch the church in her sinfulness. Well, that ain't hard to do. But that doesn't take away of her vision and her gospel. The fact that we are sinful proclaimers of the gospel doesn't take away the goodness and holiness of the gospel itself. We're not innocent, but we are servants of the truth. See? And the truth is personal. It's Christ, the incarnate truth of God. See? But the Lord is with me. Remember, he, like a mighty champion, my persecutors will stumble, and they will not triumph. I really think of the Europe of the last century, the neo-paganization of Europe and the rise of dictatorships. All of them have stumbled, every one of them. Some took longer than others. It took a while for Stalin. Hitler ends up in a bunker with a gun in his mouth. He recreated himself as a messianic figure. All he brought was death. Mussolini, they hung him like a pig by his feet. I love that image. I got to say, I love that image of Mussolini. I wish they got Hitler the same way. To show him to the world for what he was. Nothing but a loser. See, a loser. A false deity, a false messiah. Instead of bringing life, they brought death and horror because they were fundamental liars. They believed in themselves. And they all attacked the church on top of it all because the church was the counter voice to them. Christian world was the counter voice. Okay? See, but the Lord is with me like a mighty champion. My persecutors will stumble and they will not triumph, and they haven't. In their failure, they would be put to utter shame, to lasting and unforgettable confusion. All you got to look is the mid-20th century. That's all you got to look. You want that? Go ahead, you can have it. Is that the humanism you want that led to such horror? The most enlightened people in the world that led to the worst crimes in human history. Huh? Okay, it's okay with me. You want it? You can have it. And Jeremiah continues, O Lord of hosts, you who test the just, who probe mind and heart. Let me witness, he says, the vengeance you take on them. For to you I have entrusted my cause. Actually, in a sense, it came true. We are the witnesses to history, and history is the final judge. And you look at what happens when you attack the gospel and recreate it in your own image and likeness. You produce monstrosity. That's exactly what's happened in the 20th century. The 20th century is the fulfillment of the 3 centuries that went before. As we continually de-Christianize our culture, we created the greatest monsters in the history of our culture. The first half of the 20th century leave nothing to be desired in terms of monstrosity. We're the most enlightened parts of the world, the most enlightened people of Europe. The longest history produced the worst monsters. Even we're with the sciences, they served monstrosity. When you think about it, they served monstrosity. Where was the profound humanism? Where? And the slaughter of the innocent, the massacre of children, gas chambers, you gas little children. This is enlightenment. Oh, yeah. The supremacy of the Aryan race. It's laughable, except it's horror. The vengeance is the vengeance of history. They who thought they would rule the world, at best rule the inferno.